When I first started learning English, I didn't think reading would help me. I thought it was boring and slow. I wanted to speak fast, understand movies, and talk like a native speaker. Reading didn't seem like the way to do that. But I was wrong. In the beginning, I avoided English books. I only focused on speaking and listening. I watched videos, listened to podcasts, and tried to copy what people said. It helped, but only a little. I could say basic things like, "How are you?" or "What is your name?" But when someone answered me, I didn't understand. They used words I didn't know. Their grammar was different. I felt stuck. I felt small. I felt like English was a world I could never enter. One day, my teacher gave me a small storybook. It was very simple. It had big letters, small sentences, and some pictures. I looked at the cover and said, "This is for children. I don't need this." But my teacher smiled and said, "Just try it. Read one page." I was not excited, but I respected my teacher, so I opened the first page. The story was about a cat and a boy. The boy lost his cat and looked for it in the garden, the house, and finally found it under the bed. Very easy. But I understood everything. For the first time, I felt like I could read in English. I smiled. I felt proud. I could read something from start to finish without needing help. That moment changed something inside me. That one book changed everything for me. I asked my teacher for more. I started reading one book every week. Sometimes I read comic books. Sometimes I read short stories. I didn't worry about understanding every word. I just read. I guessed the meaning from the story and the pictures. And the strange thing was, I started understanding more and more without trying too hard. The words stayed with me. The stories stayed with me. And I started to believe that I could learn English. Reading helped me in ways I didn't expect. First, I learned many new words. Some words I saw again and again. The more I saw them, the more I remembered them. I didn't have to memorize long word lists. I just read stories, and the words stayed in my mind. Words like quiet, angry, window, run away, and suddenly became easy for me. I saw how those words were used in different sentences, and that helped me remember them better. The more I read, the more my vocabulary grew naturally. Second, my grammar improved. Before, I always had to think about grammar rules. Past tense, present perfect, irregular verbs. It was confusing. But in books, I saw how grammar worked in real situations. I saw sentences like, "He had gone before I arrived," and "She has never seen a whale." I didn't understand them at first, but after reading many similar sentences, I started to feel how grammar works. I didn't need to translate every word, I just felt it. Grammar became natural. Reading showed me how people really use English, not just rules in a textbook. Third, reading gave me confidence. When I spoke before, I was afraid of making mistakes. But after reading many sentences in books, I had examples in my mind. I could speak with more trust in myself. I remembered how sentences looked and sounded. I didn't copy exactly, but I built my own sentences with the same patterns. It felt good. I no longer feared grammar or vocabulary. I started using what I read. Reading also helped my thinking in English. At first, I always translated from my native language. That made my speech slow. But when I started reading stories in English every day, I began thinking in English too. When I woke up, I thought, it is a nice day. When I saw a dog, I thought, that dog looks happy. I stopped translating. I just thought in English naturally. That made me faster, more confident, and more fluent. I still remember the first time I read a full book in English without help. It was a small book about an adventure on an island. It took me 2 weeks to finish it. I didn't understand every word, but I understood the story. And when I finished it, I felt like I had climbed a mountain. I told myself, if I can read this, I can do more. I started reading different types of books. I read fairy tales, news articles, blogs, even simple novels. Some were difficult, but I didn't give up. I used a pencil to underline new words. I looked up the meaning later. But I didn't stop reading just because I didn't know one word. I read for fun. That was the secret. I stopped seeing reading as study and started seeing it as enjoyment. Then I made reading part of my daily routine. Every morning before school, I read for 10 minutes. Every night before bed, I read 1 or 2 pages. On weekends, I read more. I carried a small English book in my bag. If I had to wait in line or sit on the bus, I read. Slowly, I fell in love with English books. They were not just tools for learning. They became my friends. Reading also connected me to the world. I read about people in different countries, about their lives, their food, their dreams. I read about history, science, and culture. I learned how people think in English. I learned jokes, feelings, and emotion. I felt part of something bigger. English books opened the door to a wider world. Some days I didn't feel like reading, but I read anyway, even 1 paragraph, because I knew that small steps every day lead to big change. I read when I was happy. I read when I was tired. I read when I was sad. And every time, reading helped me feel stronger. When I started reading English books, I didn't plan to become fluent. I just wanted to understand one story. But book by book, sentence by sentence, I changed. Now I speak English with more comfort. I write better. I listen with more understanding. And all of this started with one simple book about a cat. So if you want to learn English, start reading. Don't wait until you are ready. You are ready now. Start with something easy. Read every day. Read what you love. Comic books, fairy tales, news, short stories. It doesn't matter. What matters is that you read, with your heart open and your mind curious. You don't have to understand everything. Just understand the story. Let the words enter your life slowly. Trust the process. Every page you read is a step forward. Every story is a lesson. Every book is a teacher. Reading is not just about learning words. It's about growing your world. It's about building your confidence, your grammar, and your thinking. When you read, you don't just learn English, you live in English. Reading gave me the power to think, speak, and dream in English. I now read books that once scared me. I read newspapers, listen to audiobooks, and follow online articles. The more I read, the more I learn, not only about English, but about life, people, and the world. So, take a book, open it, and start your journey. Because the more you read, the more you learn. And the more you learn, the closer you are to speaking English without fear.